Hi folks, welcome to Crisco's Corner. Unfiltered commentary. And that's your truth, the real truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for your support. Welcome back. Here's a small collage of clips that I put together concerning the Senate hearings today with two generals and the Secretary of Defense. I believe General Miller, General Milley, or believe me, General McKenzie, General Milley, and Secretary Austin. And it's quite eye-opening. What they basically did is they threw President Biden under the bus. Let's make no mistake, they try to double-speak it a little bit, but they threw him under the bus. Now, I think if that's the truth, that's the truth. But I think they're trying to cover their own behinds, too. Because you can have such a screw-up as the cluster blank that came out of the withdrawal from Afghanistan and not have one person be responsible. So I think they're throwing the president under the bus, and rightfully so, but to save themselves, not to come to the truth. So let's listen a little bit, and I'll try to comment here and there.
And we're still working to get Americans out who wish to leave. And we did not get out all of our Afghan allies enrolled in a special immigrant visa program. And the circumstances in August were anything but ideal. Extreme heat, a landlocked country, no government, a highly dynamic situation on the ground, and an active, credible, and lethal terrorist threat. In a span of just 2 days, from the 13th to the 15th of August, we went from working alongside a democratically elected, longtime partner government to coordinating warily with a longtime enemy. We operated in a deeply dangerous environment.
While the Taliban did not attack U.S. forces, which was one of the conditions, it failed to fully honor any other condition under the Doha Agreement. And perhaps most importantly for U.S. national security, the Taliban has never renounced al-Qaeda or broke its affiliation with them. We, the United States, adhered to every condition.
But I will give you my honest opinion, and my honest opinion and view shaped my recommendation. I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. And I also recommended earlier in the fall of 2020 that we maintain 4,500 at that time. Those are my personal views. I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government.
Yes, so I understand that. And General Milley, I assume you agree with that in terms of the recommendation of 2,500?
What I said in my opening statement and the memoranda that I wrote back in the fall of 2020 remained consistent, and I do agree with that.
This committee is unsure as to whether or not General Miller's recommendation ever got to the president. Obviously, there are conversations with the president, but I would like to ask, even though General McKenzie, I think you've all made this statement, did you talk to the president about General Miller's recommendation?
Sir, I was present when that discussion occurred, and I'm confident that the president heard all the recommendations and listened to them very thoughtfully.
Now, listen to him very thoughtfully. Very interesting, very interesting. So who's really calling the shots here? Is it the President of the United States, who's the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces? Or is it just a secret group of people, faceless, nameless, unelected, that are making the decisions? I still don't know.
Citizens, is it your opinion, are still there? Just go down the line, each one of you. Anyone?
Senator, I would defer to the State Department for that assessment.
You see, with the Secretary of Defense, who actually directly works for the president, even though the generals are under his command, that being the president, generals can't be fired. This guy can. And so he's going to put the best spin on it that he can, i.e. the BS meter.
That's a dynamic process. They've been contacting the civilians that are in Afghanistan, And again, I would defer to them for definitive numbers.
Go ahead. Others?
Just same, as the Secretary just said. There were numbers at the beginning of this whole process with the F-77
See, that's why the Secretary Austin went first. Now they know what to say.
report out of the embassy, and we know that we took out almost 6,000, I guess it is, American citizens. But how many remain at deferred?
Okay, do all of you agree that Secretary of State Blinken, when he made his analysis as to how many people would be?
Blinken, I believe that's the main cause of all this whole entire issue of the cluster blank that was withdrawn and how it was done. I think Blinken might be mainly responsible.
Here, but would still be there. You talked about the 10 to 15,000 citizens left behind, and then evacuated some 6,000. That would mean a minimum of 4,000 would still be there now. Would anyone disagree with that? By your silence, I assume you agree.
I have no, I personally don't believe that there are 4,000 American citizens still left in Afghanistan, but I cannot confirm or deny that, Senator.
You can't confirm or deny it, but you personally believe there's less than that. I personally believe there's less than that, but I have zero evidence. Really.
So you think Secretary of State was probably wrong in his analysis?
A reconstituted al-Qaeda or ISIS with aspirations to attack the United States is a very real possibility. And those conditions, to include activity in ungoverned spaces, could present themselves in the next 12 to 36 months.
Let me move on to another recommendation they are reported to have made. General Milley,
Now, you're not going to believe what comes up next. It's amazing to me what transpired on what dates and what input of the Joint Chiefs and others in the military, including the Secretary of Defense. It makes you wonder what the hell is going on and who's really in charge.
Biden has said that it was the unanimous recommendation of the Joint Chiefs that we not maintain a military presence beyond August 31st. We've heard testimony to that effect today as well. When was that unanimous recommendation sought and presented to the President?
You're talking about the 31 August?
Yes, the 31 August deadline for getting
so
out
on
of there.
25 August, I was asked to make an assessment and provide best military advice on...
I'm sorry,
Cabal fell on August 15th. The president brought in Milley here and others to get their assessment on the 25th. 10 days after Cabal fell and 6 days before they were going to leave by August 31. What the hell is going on? What the hell? The President of the United States didn't ask the military leaders as the country was being overrun, as they abandoned the airfield north of the Cabal, way to get out. They didn't ask. He didn't ask what they thought until the 25th. What in the world is going on? Who's really in charge of the armed forces of the United States? Unbelievable.
time is limited here. You gave me the answer that I needed to hear. August 25th?
Correct.
Kabul fell on August 15th.
That's correct.
You were not asked before August 25th?
16th. On August 25th, I was asked to provide best military assessment as whether we should keep military forces.
Look at him lean back. Look at him lean back. He's like, what the beep? Are you freaking kidding me? I think any normal person would react like that. I don't think he knew. Apparently he didn't know. Look at that. He leaned back like, you gotta be effing kidding me.
Past the 31st.
Secretary Austin, was anybody asked before August 25th if we should keep troops at the Kabul airport?
This is the president tasked us to provide an assessment on whether or not we should extend our presence beyond August 31st.
Yeah, and that's where he throws him under the bus. He has no choice. Is he trying to save his own behind? Probably. He'd like to get the hell out of being Secretary of Defense now and go work for Lockheed Martin and sit on some board for $500,000 a year and maybe work 6 months out of 12. But here he is.
And as General Milley just said, that assessment was made. We tasked him to make that assessment on the 25th, and he came back and provided his best military advice.
Secretary, Kabul fell on August 15th. It was clear that we had thousands of Americans. It was clear to members of this committee who were getting phone calls that we had thousands of
He looks like a 5-year-old getting chewed out by his dad, doesn't he?
Americans in Afghanistan behind Taliban lines on August 15th. And it took 10 days to ask these general officers if we should extend our president. I suspect the answer might be a little different if you were asking them 16 days out, not 5 days out.
General Milley, were there options given for keeping American troops in Afghanistan rather than the unconditional chaotic withdrawal?
Yes.
You presented options.
By the way, this is Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, and where I hope to move someday soon, and I would love for her to be my senator. I live in upstate New York, so you know who I'm stuck with.
And those options were declined.
There were options presented and debated.
Yes or no?
A decision was made.
Yes or no is fine. Did you at any point create options for keeping Bagram open beyond July 2nd?
Yes.
And there it is. Bagram, those you don't know, is the airport outside of Kabul, the military base, military airport, which, by the way, when the Afghan Air Force woke up one morning, the power was turned off and the Americans were gone. No warning, no notice. That's how it was done. And all the aircraft was left and $80+ billion worth of equipment. Boom is right. They were given options, and he did none of them. He picked the worst case scenario. You have to ask yourself, is it incompetence of whoever's making the decisions? Is it incompetence? Or did he want this thing to blow up and be the worst case cluster blank in the world?
Did you provide options for keeping Bagram open directly to the president?
Yes.
But first, before I do, Secretary Austin, I have to take issue with something you just said. I know this is an administration talking point. I've heard it out of the mouth of the press secretary and others. We are not leaving Americans behind. That was your quote of just a minute ago. With all due respect, sir, you have left, past tense, Americans behind. We have no presence any longer in Afghanistan. There were hundreds of Americans, and not just Americans generally, civilians you left behind against the...
Look at Secretary Austin's face. He's not having a very good day.
President's explicit commitment not to leave until all American citizens were out and to safety. That is not what happened. And now we have people who are desperately, frantically trying to get out of this country, coming to me, coming to members of this committee, asking for help. They can't get that help. They're stuck behind enemy lines. So please don't tell me that we're not leaving Americans behind. You left them behind. Joe Biden left them behind. And frankly, it was a disgrace.
In the previous round, we established that the withdrawal achieved no security conditions other than an unconditional withdrawal. We had to withdraw by a time certain, a date certain. Has the military, and these are yes or no questions, please, General Milley, has the military's task to defeat terror threats from Afghanistan gotten harder?
Yes.
Now comes the real spin meister. How's she going to spin this? What they're going to ask her is, hey, they just testified. President Biden said it was a split decision on the military. Now they're saying everybody said the same thing. What's the deal? It's fascinating how she answers, and it's fascinating how her mind works from a mental health point of view, I guess.
The president said his military commanders were split. We now know that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, the head of CENTCOM, General McKenzie, and the commander on the ground, General Miller, all recommended the president keep 2,500 troops. So who in his military advisors told him it'd be fine to pull everybody out?
I'm not going to get in specific details of who recommended what, but I would reiterate a little bit of what I conveyed before, which is that there were recommendations made by a range of his advisors, something he welcomed.
A range of his advisors that he welcomed. That tells you what? It's the progressive Democrat whack jobs behind the scenes, not military, that were advising President Biden, who are probably the ones that are really making the decision. They pounded on him verbally, and they pounded on him until he just said, okay, we'll do nothing really, and we'll end up like it ended up. Those are the advisors she's talking about. That's why she can't say I can't go into detail, because she's got to admit that the vast majority of the advice the president got was non-military personnel.
Something he asked them to come to him clear-eyed about, to give him candid advice. What is also clear, though, and I'd also note again what Secretary Austin said today, is that was not going to be a sustainable over the long-term troop presence. We were always going to look at escalating the numbers, at potentially going back to war with the Taliban, at risking casualties. That was not a decision the president was going to make. But of course, he welcomes advice. He welcomed advice. Ultimately, it's up to the commander-in-chief to make a decision. He made a decision it was time to end a 20-year war.
He made a decision it was time to end a 20-year war. No, it was Trump that did that. And the deal that Trump made was fine. He had from January 20th, actually before, if you think about it, but we'll say it as a practical matter, January 20th, the day Biden was sworn in as president. He had all that time to make plans. He didn't want to end this war, but he was stuck with it because the deal that Trump made. And everybody's saying the Trump deal was a bad one. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You can't withdraw that many people from a country with the logistics you have, and the airplanes, and the military, and the equipment, in all of February, March, April, May, June, July. 6 months, you can't get them out? I don't buy it. He didn't want to end the war. Trump made that decision for him. And actually, I'm glad.
You are saying here that military advisors to the president said it was okay to pull all the troops out, that it'd be fine.
That's not what I said. What I said was they recommended, I think we should not dumb this down.
Yeah, they recommended, and let's not dumb this down, because she can't squirrel out of it unless she complicates the matter with rhetoric to distract you and make you look the other way. We should dumb it down. That's not what she said. The advisors, they weren't military, and they overrode the Joint Chiefs and all the other military advisors. She can't say that, though. She might not even know, but I'm sure she does.
For anybody here. We're talking about the initial phase post-May 1. We're not talking about long-term recommendations.
But I will give you my honest opinion.
I thought these two clips should be played again, and then we'll talk in the end.
And my honest opinion and view shaped my recommendation. I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. And I also recommended earlier in the fall of 2020 that we maintain 4,500 at that time. Those are my personal views. I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government.
Yes, so I understand that. And General Milley, I assume you agree with that in terms of the recommendation of 2,500?
What I said in my opening statement and the memoranda that I wrote back in the fall of 2020 remained consistent, and I do agree with that.
General Milley, were there options given for keeping American troops in Afghanistan rather than the unconditional chaotic withdrawal?
Yes.
You presented options, and those options were declined.
There were options presented and debated.
Yes or no?
A decision was made.
Yes, sir. Yes or no is fine. Did you at any point create options for keeping Bagram open beyond July 2nd?
Yes.
Did you provide options for keeping Bagram open directly to the president?
Yes.
Well, there it is. There is the crux of it. All the options were given, and none of them were taken. I can't believe in a million years that even people like Milley, who's a left-wing nut, the one that want to know He wanted to know why there was white rage, too. We'll put all that aside for a minute. They're military men. I can't believe that any of them would say, let's close the airport. Let's not take anybody out. Let's take out who we can. And August 31st, whoever's left there, we're just going to leave, and the military is going to pull out. We're going to leave the equipment. Not for a minute do I believe that anybody military suggested that, even remotely, which tells you what? The decision was made by non-military people. And there it is. And they threw Biden under the bus. The question is, why did they do it? Is it time for the President Biden to go? Are they going to pull the 25th Amendment? Who knows? My guess still holds, I still hold to my prediction. Early, mid-January of next year, Biden will resign. And he'll say health reasons. And for the future of the country, somebody younger, and the usual nonsense. And Kamala Harris will be president of the United States. God help us. The fun part will be the confirmation of a new vice president, and I'd love to see who that's going to be, what whack job they pick. But I digress. They're throwing Biden under the bus. Seems to be a coordinated effort. Very unusual. Very unusual because Austin, Secretary of Defense, works for Biden. Milley here is a leftist, loves the leftist agenda. He's a brainwashed drone. And I don't know what's going to become of it. Who knows? This is looking better, more like a banana republic every day. Let's hope we get through this. I know this episode is really long, but I thought it was worth looking at because it is hugely important for the future of this country. So there you have it. Make up your own mind. There it is. Until the next time, goodbye and good luck.